See, before we start, did you hear about the 4 bears that walked into a pub? They all got a job. They all got a job.
Right, what were the jobs?
That's it, just it. They all just walked into a pub and they all got a job and they weren't looking for one, eh? Oh, we've started. Right. Good afternoon. Welcome to our Celtic State of Mind. My name's Kevin Graham and today I'm joined by John Hughes and James Mackenzie. How are you all doing?
Good, mate. All good.
Good.
Doing good.
James?
It was a nice pick-me-up last night. I was in attendance at Easter Road. We had a uni field trip to Easter Road for the game where I was sat in between two hibbies who had a Cheshire cat like going every time the goals went in. So last night was a good pick-me-up from that. I'm sure you can all agree as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to really agree, but it was one of the games. It was one of the games. I'll come to you then, James. Obviously, Easter Road's just round the corner for you actually stay anyway. So you've been to Easter Road quite a lot. Let's not talk about Easter Road. I think last night it was a score line that didn't reflect the performance, and it was a performance that was 50 shades of rotten for the whole game. What do you think then, James?
It was a strange game.
Can I just say, sorry, Kev, I have missed you. I have missed you so much.
Thank you very much, John.
It was a strange game. I've missed you too, Kev.
Thank you, James.
Engels said at half-time that Brendan Rodgers wasn't happy in the dressing room at half-time. Despite going in at 3-0 up, it wasn't a happy atmosphere because the team knew they weren't at their best. There was about 4 or 5 moments across the 90 minutes where Aberdeen were through on goal where they completely fluffed it. On another day, took their chances. It's a completely different game. But we got Aberdeen out of position on a couple of occasions. I think that's when we looked our most dangerous on the breakaway. And we were very clinical in front of goal as well, I thought. Perhaps if we'd upped the levels a bit more, played a bit better in the first half, it could have easily been 7 or 8 on the day. There was a few standout performers as well. I thought Arnie Engels was absolutely fantastic. He was the man of the match and he was the best player in the pitch for me in that game. He was the key to everything. He was the orchestrator, the assist for Jota, and he had his part to play in Cal McGregor's goal as well. It's his challenge on Jensen and the ball breaks. Quite fortunately to Cal McGregor, but it was a good strike from the captain. We're a better team with him in it, I think. Arnie Engels, he demands the ball. He's got a bit more fight in him now as well than when we saw him his first few appearances. He's up for the battle a bit more, which you need to be a successful Celtic player. The technical ability was never in doubt for Arnie Engels, and he looks like a hell of a player. Aberdeen really couldn't handle him. He's still only 21 as well. Still the same age as me, so there's plenty of growth for Arnie Engels to come.
I thought Engels was the best player on the pitch by quite some distance, John. It was a kind of strange game. Being there from in at half time, everybody round about me, I mean, like, how the hell are we 3-0 up in this game? Because at half time, when you look at Easter Road on Saturday, and we took off the whole left hand side. We could have took off the whole left hand side last night as well. Truthfully, Sloop had a terrible game. Rio Hatate was nowhere to be seen. I mean, Austin Trusty. Watching Austin Trusty in the last 2 games has been it's like being asked to watch repeats of Mrs. Brown's Boys over and over again. It's not funny. It really isn't funny. And Jota wasn't good as well. And if we all shout on Saturday, he done right taking off the 3 guys. He could have took off the 3 boys last night as well quite easily because they weren't good. They weren't good in that first half.
No. What was the atmosphere like in the ground though in the first half? Because I don't think we played great, but there wasn't much fuss about the game. As I was saying, Aberdeen didn't cause too many problems. Was that reflected in the stands? Was there any sort of unease at any moments? Because looking at the game, it didn't seem like there would be much cause for it.
There wasn't really much unease because I think we know we can go through the gears to actually score. And like, obviously we're 13 points clear. Like, obviously that just play a massive factor into the fans' reaction. But as the game went on, there was a few more groans about Hatate and especially Trusty when he lost the boy in the second half again. There was a bit, oh, come on, Rod, come on, Brendan, you've got to get this boy off for his own actual good, eh? And Aye, but again, you've got we've done the work. We're 13 points clear. We're 16 points clear at this precise moment in time. So that does reflect in the atmosphere in the stadium. It really does. It does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about it though is, I mean, you talk about Trusty, but what happened when he brought Scales on?
I done that.
You know, I mean, so I mean, Scales got absolutely embarrassed for that goal, and really embarrassed because Scales did a great job of getting back into position. Well, it was really early getting back into position, top speed, covered it, and all the boy did was switch feet and just skin them. You know, it wasn't like it was a messy move. You know, all he did was, you know, switch feet and move past him, and Scales just he got left for dead. It was bizarre. Trusty has been wildly inconsistent. Now, I think he thrives really, and this would be probably backed up by where he came from. When we are far more disciplined, when we are defending in our banks of four, when you're in the likes of Europe, when you've got your backs to the wall, that's the kind of thing he's used to. You know, he's not used to being Beckenbauer coming out and, you know, spraying the ball about and being left defending a high line. So, to me as well, I think it must be a mental thing because, you know, I think he might just be switching off because of the games. Because when he has been in big games, his standout performances have all been in really, really important games in Europe. You know, and he's looked absolutely tremendous. I mean, if you were going to sign him based on those games alone, you know, you'd be paying 15 million for him. You know, but then you come back to a couple of games like this and he's all over the show. He's not switched on. You have, it's definitely not a physical thing, right? So it has to be mental. It has to be psychological. He's just not, he's not as alert as he should be. He's not positioned properly. He's putting himself in positions. Maybe he's overestimating his own abilities on the back of those games, but you know, he's been left for dead by fairly mediocre players. So it's yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a major worry because we obviously know he can play well, but I mean, you know, he's got to get his finger out. He can't be that inconsistent. And in terms of the actual game itself, Schlupp, I mean, I didn't want to say the other night about Schlupp, but I hate the way Schlupp defends a cross ball because he doesn't defend the cross ball. He doesn't try and close him down. He just lets him cross it, right? And that, you know, and I've now seen him in multiple games, and I haven't seen that improve. The rest of his game is really very good, but he just seems to be content to let the ball come in, you know, and that particularly annoys me. But I thought one of the most interesting things last night. Now, I don't know, it would have been weird to be there, Kev, so I feel for you because it was like, how are we 3 up? I don't, you know, but at the same time...
There was like a stunned disbelief when you're looking at people's faces going, how have we managed to be 3-0 up here? And it's great, and it's absolutely fantastic that we won 5-1, we got the 3 points, and it's been a great week to be a Celtic fan with other things that are actually happening, But you just have a look at that 90 minutes and you go, that was no very good, that. And we're no hanging Trust out to dry, we're no hanging Schlupp out to dry, we're no hanging Jota out to dry. We're just commenting on it, going, that wasn't too good last night. And it was quite good to actually hear Alistair Johnson and Engels admit that themselves, going, no, we weren't really our best, but we've got the quality to actually step up and do it. And we do have the quality to step up and do it. But what I'm looking at, James, now, I think that's 2 dodgy games Trusty's had, and it's maybe time just to take him out for the game on Saturday or Sunday. Is it Sunday? For that, because maybe just for his own good, maybe he's struggled. We've had a really, really hard run. We have had a really hard run, and it looks like mentally it's took its toll on him.
Yeah, I think it'll be playing on Brendan's mind as well to make a few changes with the team. We saw what he did at Easter Road with bringing Luke McCowan at the midfield because it's been an exhausting few weeks for the players. I mean, Bayern Munich back to back, the amount of running the players did across those games. If you go just a few weeks before, you're looking at the Villa game, which I think is probably the fastest paced game that we've played all season. So the players are bound to be absolutely exhausted. I wouldn't be surprised if Austin Trusty does come out of the team for a game or two, because I agree with what John was saying. He's very inconsistent some games he will look absolutely fantastic. In other games, you're thinking, we paid $6 million for this guy. So I'd maybe take him out for Liam Scales for a couple of games. I think Brendan will be making a few changes like that. I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like Anthony Ralston maybe come in for a game or two as well, because Alistair Johnson's been playing an endless amount of football. We can't forget that during the summer, Alistair Johnson didn't get much time off. He was at the Copa America with Canada. So I can't remember when his last proper break really would have been. So some tweaks in the team over the coming weeks will definitely be needed. And a big tweak that Brendan made last night was playing Maeda through the middle and taking Daizen Maeda out. Daizen Maeda was a player that I was very critical of on Saturday against Hibs. He really wasn't good enough in that game. And you saw the difference in attack in these breakaway opportunities, how quick we were turning defence into attack against Aberdeen. And it's a big benefit having Daizen Maeda through the middle. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how we roll in attack going forward till the end of the season. And just on Jeffrey Schlupp, John has been a bit critical of him. I've been a big fan of Jeffrey Schlupp since he's come in. I was critical of the signing when we first made it because it reeked the desperation that we thought we'd gone past as a club. But I'd be looking for him to be starting that position until the end of the season. I think Greg Taylor hasn't had his greatest campaigns. He wasn't in the squad last night because his wife went into labour earlier yesterday. So best wishes to them if any of them are tuning in for some reason.
And we don't know if the rumour's true. We don't know if the rumour's true. Is when he was past his newborn baby, he passed it straight back. We didn't ken if that's true. But congratulations to the Taylors. Look, we've been great this season. We have really been great this season. But you can't. I'm going to call it a poor performance when I see one. And last night there was a load of them. It was a poor performance, and I think we over-egg a lot. Yeah, it was a poor game, but we ended up winning 5-1. Our performance levels weren't there. But as James has already said, John, Arne Engels was absolutely fabulous. Absolutely fabulous, and he has been over the last couple of months. I think he's eventually now grasping what it is to be a Celtic player.
I think he's just settling in, and finding his feet. But there is that, that cognitive dissonance of last night was, I don't understand what's happening here. We could be 2-0 down, all of a sudden we're 3-0 up. And we just took our chances brilliantly. But that's something we've complained about often, about us not taking our chances, about this game could be over by half-time. So on the back of what you feel was a poor performance, Kev, we're 3-0 up at half-time.
I know.
Right. So
the
game's over.
The game's over, right?
And so the second half is just for fun. And it was generally just for fun. So there's the other points I took from last night. I thought Engels was very good, but he will thrive against much higher level opposition than this. I think he might have been inspired by that European run. That's the first time he's ever been in that sort of company, at that level. So I think he will be inspired by that and hope to see the best. We didn't buy him for that sort of money for no reason. The boy's obviously got serious potential. Someone who wasn't on to start last night, Idah. I have been a big fan of Idah's. I think he's got tremendous potential. Brendan had to go and make his case to sign him. And by all accounts, he just said it was because of the potential upside of the boy. And you can see it, but I think there's a fundamental disconnect between what he thinks he should be doing and what he should be doing. He's dropping back deep all the time in certain games, right? Games where there are deep-lying defences, he's dropping deep to get the ball, and he's not good at it. He's not good at build-up play. He loses the ball, and he's not particularly good at it. So where he's thrived is when he's been up front doing what he's supposed to do, when he's maintained his position. I mean, a couple of those games, even the Aston Villa game, those goals, if a couple of weeks before that, even Idah wouldn't have been in those positions because he wouldn't go into the box. His heat map is ridiculous for a striker. It's between the 18-yard line and, our 18-yard line. I mean, that's where he's basically is, and most of it between the 18-yard line and the halfway line. It's not in the box, So I think Brendan's just very frustrated because he knows he's a good player, but he needs him to do what he's asked to do, and I do not think Brendan is asking him to drop that deep and pick up the ball. I just don't think he's asking him to do that. So I think he needs to get himself together and start listening to his manager, because I just don't believe Brendan's asking him to do that. So anyway, beyond that, I thought the thing of interest last night, and probably the most controversial topic, is Yang a player or is he not? Right? Because everyone's got an incredibly strong opinion on this, and everyone's got a valid argument, because, the guys who say he's not a player, he comes on and he's absolutely dreadful and he does nothing. And then the next game, the guys who say he is a player, he comes on and he's brilliant and he makes a great contribution and he looks like he's going to be a generational talent, and then everyone's back to square one. Generational talent, I'm telling you. I'm right behind you. Right, that might be a bit of hyperbole, to be fair, but he looks like a very good player at times. And I just, it's very difficult to say. I think the manager's going to be a bit confused as well about what he should do with him. Because he comes on there last night and he looked, the fourth goal was all Yang. The fifth goal, I think, was mainly Yang. So, admittedly, look, they're a beaten side at that point. So it's very difficult to be definitive. It wasn't as if it was we were struggling to get a goal in the game. So maybe last night's not the best to go by, but the boy really does have, some great talent. It'll be a difficult one to let him go, but then he comes on and he trips over himself. So I don't know. What do you think?
Two things before I start talking about Youngsters Paradise. Idah, I think he's trying too hard. I think he's just trying too hard, and I think you see that. I think he lets things get on top of him instead of you look at Kyogo, who would miss chances and don't do much in a game, but he would still be there. He wouldn't let his head go down. I think Adams, I think it's a mentality thing with him, and he's trying too hard. They drop him deep. They try to make things happen. He had a great turn in the box last night, and it was easier. He done the hard thing, then he fired the shot right into the Celtic end. And it was easier. What he had done the hard thing. It was easier to put the ball at the back of the net after he had turned the defender. I just think he just needs to calm down a wee bit, and him coming on is probably going to do him good rather than starting games, get his confidence back up that way. With Yang, I says when I was on with Quinny a couple of weeks ago, he was a vegan square sausage. All right to eat if you haven't got the real thing. And I'm still of that opinion, and I might grow to love vegan square sausages. I do not know, but at the moment I still want an Aberdeen Angus steak square sausage at the moment, and Yangs definitely know that. James, what's your thoughts?
Well, just to pick up for what you were saying on Idah first, he is forcing things. When you look at Easter Road, John was talking about his positioning at times. There was moments where Idah was appearing wide right, and Maeda was through the middle. It completely messes up the rhythm in attack as well, and it feels like he's forcing things. So again, I'll go back to Easter Road when he fights his way through and then he shoots when he's got Nicholas Kuhn square to make it 1-1. If he plays that pass, it's 1-1, and that could be a game-changing moment. He's clearly a confidence player. He goes on runs, he goes through patches of good form, and he falls out of form. And the reason he did so well in his loan spell at the club was because his debut, he scores 2 goals to win the game in a crucial away game where it looked like we were going to drop points. It was the perfect start to his Celtic career, and he just took it and ran with it from then. And we're needing a big moment from Idah, I think, this season, because of the amount of big moments he had last season, to really get that confidence back so that he can push on, because we know there's a player there. We know there's a player who can win us Scottish Cups and can provide massive moments for the club. We just really need to get him back to that level. And just on the vegan square sausage, Yang, as you were referring to, that was something for an analogy. He takes his opportunities when he gets them off the bench, and then he gets the reward for his opportunities, and he does something like booting the defender in the head at Tynecastle that undoes all the good progress he's made the weeks prior. He can never really seem to build a good run of games. But these last few weeks, he's taken his opportunities. Another good showing from the bench. He was very lively. Starts and he finishes the 4th goal. Some good interplay with Luke McCown. It's a good finish as well We haven't associated good technical ability with Yang, or at least I haven't. But that was a fantastic finish, I thought, for that goal. And he did some good work for the fifth as well. But we just need him to finally take his chance when he comes in from the start. Take it and run with it. We need him to push on, because we're still seeing evidence of a raw talent, a prospect, but he's a year and a half into his Celtic spell now, where we would be hoping that he would be beyond that level by now. He would have pushed on to a different level, as Nicholas Kuhn did after about 6 months it took him, and then the levels came up. So we need Yang to go to that next level, because we're still seeing the promising signs, but we're looking for something more now.
We are, and it's going to be an interesting summer for Yang, I reckon. And I think the club will have a decision to make. What I want in the summer is not going to change. I want us to keep Sloop as cover for anywhere over the pitch, even probably goalkeeper. Before what we've probably been told, he can probably play in goals. Not 100% sure that, but I'm sure we'll maybe see him in goals before the end of the season. I want another midfielder. I want somebody with Sloop's physicality. Physicality has become my sort of buzzword. I've noticed in the comments I seem to say physicality quite a lot. That's because I'm a wee skinny boy at 5'6", and it's something that I've always lacked. I want to see a physicality brought into the midfield, and another centre forward and another winger. So that's what I'm looking for. So it'll be interesting to see what we do with Yang in the summer, what decision the club makes.
I think you're right on the winger front as well, because even after we'd signed Jaw, there was still about 2 or 3 more wingers they got linked with. I remember we're still strongly linked within the region. So Brendan clearly wants another winger as well to add to Jaw. So I think a winger will be something we definitely go for in the summer, because even if Maeda picks up an injury, then you're still picking at scraps again for the bench, which you don't want to be in that position. Another winger, I think, would really be needed.
Yeah.
I think a winger is needed. I do think that we'll bring in. A winger. I'm going to go to the comments. We're 22 minutes in, so I'll go to the comments. Thomas Burns, why so negative after winning 5-1? I think we've got a right to call out a game where we weren't on it, but we still enjoyed the result. We really did enjoy the result. But we can actually, we know our players have got quality. They've proven they've got quality. We've already won the League Cup. We ran Bayern Munich close. We had a great European campaign. We're 16 points clear in the league. So we know that the players have got quality, and we've maybe been spoiled. Maybe that's what we are. I'm veggie man. Maybe he was fell out of me after my vegan sausage roll, my vegan square sausage comment later on. He says I'm 100% spot on. I don't think I'm a Mrs. Sloop. James isn't 34. No way he's 19 at the most.
Where's 34 come from?
I don't know, James. Are you 34?
It's not 19 at most either. 21 years old.
21. I was about to say if you were 34, that makes me even older. AR comes in. I would hate to see our fan base today if it got transported back to the 90s. Funnily enough, at half time last night, we were having a conversation, and we were talking about the 90s, and we were talking about like how we were slagging the performance, but we're 3-0 up, we're 16 points clear. We're having a laugh and a joke at it, basically. And what we were actually talking about was how we would take 3 day, how you would go on a 3-day bender if you won at Brockville in the early 90s, and how far we have come since that point, and how we loved the fact that you would go on a 3-day bender if you won at Brockville, because they were great days to actually grow up. But the football team wasn't too good. But
I don't know. I mean, you see, people keep saying that, and it is true, but you're now 25 years on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's like someone saying, when I was growing up, oh, you should have been a fan in the early 50s. You know, we didn't win anything until 65, or, you know, all the rest of it, which is that one there. But, you know, it's just not relevant. And you've got an entire couple of generations of people now who have got no idea what you're talking about in terms of, you know, being grateful. But, you know, I mean, I lived through the 90s, and it was horrendous, and I don't forget that, but I don't think I'm entitled now in terms of wanting more. I mean, I didn't think we were great last night. I don't think we were as poor as you would have initially said, Kev. But I mean, I don't think we were great last night, and that's fine. Whether we won or not. But our standards now are so different, so completely different. We were lucky to survive the 90s. So, that's like saying, you had a difficult birth, and 25 years later, you can't be criticised at work because, you had a hard time 25 years ago. James himself is only 21, so he's got no idea what we're talking about here. So again, that we're looking now, this club, we're looking forward with visions for Europe. That's what we're looking at, potential, expanded competition in Europe and our place in that. I mean, that's seriously what we're looking at. So we're certainly not looking across the road. Go on, do me a favour. Can we come to that now, Kev? Can we?
Oh, can we maybe leave that for the last 15 minutes? Can we leave that for the comedy last 15 minutes?
Yeah, just to pick up on what you were talking about, I'm regularly informed by a certain generation of Celtic supporter that I wouldn't have been able to cope with the 90s. My generation of Celtic supporters wouldn't have been able to survive in the 90s. But as John was saying, all I've known is titles being a given. All I've known is title after title after title after title, and that's not my fault. Celtic set that precedent by going through this era of dominance. And in any walk of life, you should be looking to go to every day, every year, looking to improve. So I would be hoping that Celtic would be taking that same philosophy as they go into every single season, trying to get stronger and stronger and stronger. So my apologies that I wasn't born 10 years earlier, 20 years earlier to experience the hardships that some supporters did, but it's just the way things are.
You would have enjoyed the 90s, you just adapted. You just really adapted. I said the other day that I was slagging Hibs basically about beating Celtic in the release of DVD of that victory of their season. That is the highlight of the season. We done that in the 90s as well. I've got a loft full of them. Beating Rangers once in a season and we release a video and you would go and buy it. It's just what you do. You actually make fun out of a bad situation. And it's just like making fun out the situation we are. Like last night, we were having a laugh. We're 3-0 up here and we haven't played well. And that is just what happens. That's what a fan's been about. Celtic follower, gross bottle tops on your shoes, Pepe jeans and listen to Bros on your Walkman. I think that's more 88, 89 rather than the 90s Celtic follower.
I also think that might be specific to you, mate. That's
me?
No, to the commenter listening to Bros in his Walkman. I would rather have set my Walkman alight than listen to Bros.
Pepe jeans were the ticket. I used to buy my Pepe jeans for Falkirk Market. Falkirk are getting an awful lot of mentions a day. Let's get back to the football. Alpha 0964. Hatate is class, which makes his inconsistency all more frustrating. I'm going to come to James with this. I completely agree with that comment, and that is behind my thinking that if we get a decent offer for him in the summer, we won't be too difficult to deal with, because I think that's Brendan Rodgers' opinion of him as well.
Yeah, he's been a player that's frustrated me at times this season. He's been a player that over his Celtic career, he's often divided opinion. I've always been the side prior to this season that he was a very positive contributor to the Celtic team. The flair that he brings to the team, he tries things that no one else will, and as a result of that, he will make mistakes. There will be misplaced passes, but the one that does come off, that carves the defence open and leads to the goal, is the one that we'll all be cheering at the end of the day. But this season has probably been his weakest as a Celtic player so far. I'd say there's
controversial.
There's a couple of times where he's tracking back, hasn't been the greatest. I think it was when we lost 3-0 at Ibrox, that was a performance of his that really stood out to me as a real off day for Rio Hatate. Because when these passes don't come off, his performances can be absolute horror shows at times. And there's better players in that midfield than him now, and we could probably go out and buy some good options. But you see the positives in Hatate as well. When you look at how he's been towards the tail end of this European campaign, he's really started to step things up. I'm more thinking about November, December, January time, where Hatate was going through a weak spell. It's been the last month he's kind of picked things back up. But I wouldn't be heartbroken if we lost him. I wouldn't be as devastated at losing Hatate as I would be when we lost Kyogo. So he's a player. I don't think the Celtic team will feel the same hurt as that as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Brendan would be looking to let him go, because we can't forget when Brendan first came in, he was preferring David Turnbull to him. So I think Brendan Rodgers would be looking at maybe a more Matt O'Reilly.
I remember when he made that decision. I was on holiday in Santa Pons, and I remember trying to defend it at the time, going, Brendan's right there. Turnbull has got a lot more than that. What was I thinking? I probably had too many Sang McWells at the time trying to even defend that.
I think I was the same as well, but I was just still clutching on and holding on to David Turnbull coming good, because I still remember when it was the shining light in that dreaded 10-0 season. He was a player that stood out. There was a point in time where all three of us had hung our hat on David Turnbull carrying this Celtic team.
And Sorrow.
It just shows
I remember him and Sorrow came in. Like.
So we can cherish poor performances in 5 months.
I think that Hatate does suffer though from the things we've seen him do in terms of the miracle passes that he's capable of, and he sort of to an extent gets judged against that. Now, I've been watching games where I've seen people commenting on my timeline, Hatate's absolutely shocking, Hatate's desperate, look at what he's doing. And I'm watching the same game, and I don't think that at all. For me, this season, again, he's another one that's been very inconsistent, but he's also disproved. I mean, a mate of mine used to say that Hatate was so predictable, you could tell what game he was going to have in the first 15, 20 minutes. And if he wasn't playing well, you might as well get him off, because he's not going to get any better. Now, this year, as a matter of fact, he has improved in the second half in a number of games, and he's actually been very good. And he's actually been good. I remember multiple occasions now where he's been back doing sliding tackles in the dying sort of 15, 20 minutes of games.
Young guys
defensively. Yeah. So, I mean, it's, he has been putting his graft in as well, but yet people think he's lazy. I don't think this year, I would disagree with you, James, in as much as I think he hasn't lost the ball as much this year, which is what makes him a liability. So, but then what happens is he's not losing the ball as much because he's not trying the gory passes as much, and therefore he loses that wee bit of magic. But it's more important to the team that we get occasional bits of magic and he doesn't leave us exposed in transition constantly. So it's more important that we sacrifice that wee bit of occasional magic for the 8 times he tries it and it doesn't come off. So I think he's sort of suffered a bit from that respect. I think he's a very good midfielder. I think he's a very good player. He could get better. But much like you say, I'm not sure how long his time is with us. I think it's a sort of interesting position at the moment, because I don't think his agent would have a hard time convincing him he's got a better move on the horizon. I don't see it. I think if he leaves us, he's not going to a higher level. He'll be going down a level or two. He may get more money, but it will not be our level. So I don't know where it's going to be. Just about how Brendan wants to manage the squad and rotate the squad. We've seen, we thought for a minute there we were thinking we had tons of options in midfield, and then one person gets injured, Bernardo gets injured, and all of a sudden, it's making you think we're exposed in that area. So it's going to be interesting to see how Brendan manages it. As you say, I don't think anyone's going to particularly cry, especially if we get a decent level replacement in. But it's not, again, to be working at the top levels, to be having someone coming in for the job that we want them to do, it's not easy. Look at Luke McCowan. Does he look like a guy that's going to dominate a game against Bayern Munich, or at least play to the top level? He's certainly a very, very decent player, but is he that guy?
He's a decent player, but he's a squad filler.
Yeah, well,
but he's there to contribute, and he makes better contribution than the guy that you actually replaced. But guys like him, Scales, Yang are squad fillers.
Well, can Hatate not be a squad filler? Do you know what I mean? Because we know he's capable of doing some really good things. So, could he not be relegated to not being the person that starts, but coming on late in the game? So I don't see why he couldn't fill that position. But it's just whether he would want to, and whether the board are going to fork out that sort of money for a potential Champions League level player like Engels, and just leave Hatate sitting there. I think that's unlikely. I don't think that will be Brendan's call. But I mean, we have from when we're talking about the likes of Hatate, you have to see who his replacements are and where our strengths are. And he has been starting. Brendan might not love him, but he's been starting nearly every game that matters. So I'm not sure I'd be confident in saying Brendan doesn't like him.
Right. The reason I say that Brendan, I'm going to use it because of my lack of vocabulary. I'm going to use the word tolerates, because he's the best option that we've got there. He's the best. If you look at our midfield three, our best midfield three is Engels, Callum McGregor, and Hatate. That's when they're clicking, they're absolutely fantastic. And there's a bit of doubt about the other ones that come in and out, whether they can reach that levels. And I'm going to go back, James, to one thing that Joe Hart, when he was commentating on the Celtic games, always says. He goes, we know that Rio Hatate will give the ball away, but we know that he can find that pass. We know he can split open a defence, but we know that he can lose the ball and get caught in the ball and that. And when Joe Hart was saying that, and I love him, Maverick, I love what Hatate can do. When Joe Hart was actually saying that, I'm going, that's not a Brendan Rodgers football. I'm going, that is not a Brendan Rodgers type player, what he wants in the midfield. The type of player Brendan Rodgers wants in the midfield is Arne Engels. And unfortunately for me, I can't see it being Rio Hatate. And I don't think the club will be difficult to deal with in the summer.
Yeah, and I think John said sometimes Hatate isn't trying these magic Hollywood passes that we've seen from him before. And I think when he drops the magic with Hatate, Arne Engels picks it up, because some of the passes he can play to break the lines have been absolutely phenomenal as well from Engels this season. I've not been saying Hatate is a poor player. He's a very good player.
No, we're not saying that. We're not saying that at all.
I think what we're saying is we wouldn't be losing sleep if Hatate were to move on, because we know we can get someone of a similar ilk or better to come in to the club at some point. And I don't think if Hatate were to leave the club, it would be a step down either. When clubs are analysing Celtic performances to assess whether they're going to buy a Celtic player or not, they're not looking at performances against St Mirren or St Johnstone. They're watching how they play in the Champions League. How does he fare against Bayern Munich? How does he fare against Aston Villa? And I think some of Hatate's best performances this season, and some of his best performances in his Celtic career, have been in European competitions against these better teams. So that's why I wouldn't be surprised if Hatate was to get a move to maybe a lower Premier League club or even the Bundesliga. There's a vast amount of Asian players who go and make a real break of it in their career in the Bundesliga. So I wouldn't be surprised if Hatate does get a move up to a higher level.
What we're actually saying, James, is we know he's a decent player. We know he's a decent player. But we're all long enough in the tooth now to actually know when a player's coming at the end of a cycle at Celtic. And I'm maybe getting to this feeling with Hatate that he's coming at the end of his cycle at Celtic, and the club, when they're earmarking guys, where they go, well, when we're making squad changes in the summer, they might know that his agent's in the background trying to get him a move, and they might know, and they're quite open. We won't be too hard to deal with if we get decent money for him. That's where I'm coming for, John. I'm not coming for that I want him at the door. I'm just having a look at that team. Now, if to get where I want us to go in Europe, everybody's replaceable. You can upgrade anywhere, but we know it's very, very difficult to do in Scottish football, Johnny. But I'm having a look at what we do as a business model. Sometimes we do it well, sometimes we do it actually quite badly. And I can see the Hatate now cycle coming to an end. And that's not because I want to get him out the door. I'm just having a look at who's in that first team that Rodgers might think I can get better and more my type of player. And unfortunately, I see it as real. That's just where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a number of factors to consider there, really. The first is Calmat can't keep this up. right? So, we've got to start looking at some sort of legacy for him in terms of, who's his replacement. So he cannot keep up the level that he's at, the ludicrous running that he does. That surely he's got to break down at some point. So you're then looking at, okay, we're bringing in better players. Let's say we bring in someone who's a starter instead of Hatate. So then you have, Hatate, potentially Bernardo, McCowan, all sitting on the bench. How often are they getting played? Are they going to be happy with that? Especially Hatate has been trusted, as I say, to start. So, Brendan seems to value something in his game. I think he's a very good, very competent player. I think that's where we struggle, because I struggle to believe still, even, the board have shown, and Brendan has been acquiesced to with the likes of, Engels and Idah. But I still, we're so used to the opposite of that subconsciously it's difficult to believe that if we let Hatate go, his replacement's going to be significantly better. So that's a challenge. But we have options. The good thing is we have options. So if we were to lose a guy who's been starting games for us, are we confident that he'd be replaced? At the moment, I think he would be. Realistically, despite my fears, as I say, subconsciously, I think he would be replaced, and at a decent level. And I don't know if we'd bring in, how many other people would bring in as a result, if Bernardo's fit and McCowan's fit. There's a couple of midfield options there. How many changes are you going to make in a game? But I definitely think we need to be looking at bringing some young fella into the squad that's going to take Calmack's place. What does Jude Bonner play? I'm not that familiar with the boy. He got his debut last night. But I can't even. Who did he come on for? I can't even remember who he came on for.
On the midfield, I think.
Came on for Engels.
Yeah, he came on for Engels. He turns 20 in November, so there's hopefully going to be chances. The title looks like we're on the cusp of the title, so hopefully there's going to be some chances for us to give Bonner some play time. Maybe a few more appearances from the bench. He's been on the bench a few times the last few weeks. He was on the bench at Easter Road as well. So Brendan's keeping him in around the squad. Clearly sees something in him. So hopefully he can get a chance maybe in the next few weeks. But I think we are going to add a midfielder in the summer, whether players leave or go anyway. I've got a gut feeling that it's going to be Lennon Miller. I think he is going to be a Celtic player this summer. And then any other additions to the midfield will be dependent on departures from there. If Hatate goes, we'll bring someone else in. But I think Lennon Miller could be exactly the player you need to decrease Callum McGregor's workload, because, as John has been saying, it's going to catch up to him eventually. We saw what happened when we played Scott Brown game after game, year after year after year, in his final season at the club, which should have been a swan song. It should have gone out in a blaze of glory. It should have been a successful season for Scott Brown, but instead it was run down, worked into the ground, and he was a shadow of his former self. And it was a very poor season. I mean, we don't want the same thing for Callum McGregor. We want him going out on the high when the time does eventually come. So we really need to manage Callum McGregor's games in the next season, or so maybe even in the next few weeks. We have to watch what we're doing with Callum McGregor, because we saw, I mentioned how exhausting the last few weeks have been, and Easter Road was a tired Callum McGregor. That was a tired Callum McGregor on the field at Easter Road that day.
I don't understand even, hopefully within the next 5-6 games, this league is over. Even less than that, depending on how Hun Direction got on. But it could be over fairly quickly. That said, at that point, then why are we playing Callum McGregor? Now, I know he's a captain, and I know, but he shouldn't kick a ball for the rest of the season, except for the cup. We should be really wrapping him in cotton wool. There is just no requirement for him to be playing full 90 minutes, which he does in every single game. There's just no need for it. For all the substitutions that we make, he never comes off. And, I understand why he doesn't come off. He's very important to the team, but we have to learn to live without him, especially the age he's at. So we need to be able to adapt to that, and we cannot just keep running them into the ground. And it's been seasons and seasons and seasons now. I know, God, was it Ange's first season where he'd run more kilometres than anyone else in Europe? He covered more ground than any other player in Europe. You know, that was considered to be a point worth boasting about by, you know, the Celtic media team. You should be embarrassed at that. You know what I mean? It's just, you're playing them far too much. So, yeah, I mean, I think we need to, I mean, the manager's got a job to do. And you have to assume he's going to manage his squad correctly. But I think once this league is won, I don't think Callum should kick another ball in the league, you know, to the end of the season if we win it early. I think he should just be playing in the cups and maybe catching half an hour, 20 minutes at the end of games just to keep him sharp. But we've really, there's no need for it. And he could be leading our team for another 2 years, 2-3 years if we look after him. If we don't look after him, it's going to be, you know, it could be much shorter than that. It could be a year. People, once people hit the edge, once people come to the end physically, it happens quickly. Suddenly, you know, it can be a very sudden drop off, and you know, I would hate to see that happen. So I think we really need to do better by our captain.
Charlie McGrew says that. He says that he felt fine at pre-season Dundee United. Within 3 games, he knew he was done. Within 3 games, he told Dundee United to rip up his contract. He says, my body's this actually gave up. I think what's good for us, we're now doing 1 game a week. Fenu we'll have a midweek game after the split. So it's the rest recovery time. Rodgers will get them on the training pitch, and hopefully we start, once the pitches start getting a wee bit better than that as well, which is maybe a misnomer in Scotland, that the weather gets better in March and April, and the pitches get a bit better, then hopefully the football will come. I agree with Callum. I agree with long term for McGregor that there is a view that we need to bring in a player to replace him as that influencer sitting in the back. I just want to bring in guys who are midfielders. I want to go back old school. A midfielder's a midfielder. He's bloke to blokes. He can defend. I hate this. Oh, he's a 6, he's an 8, he's a 10. No, you're a midfielder. You do everything. That's what I'm looking for. I think McGregor can move further forward. I'm beginning to agree with Quinny now. I think he can move further forward if we bring in that number 6. It can get about the pitch, and I think that could prolong his Celtic career. Brown Warrior comes in. If his numbers are fine, he should play, but he should be rotated. Probably agree with that and come in. One thing I noticed about Jude Bonner when he come on, there's a couple of guys says he's a left winger. He usually plays out on the left. What I did notice, the 2 guys that Rodgers has actually gave debuts to recently, and even earlier on in the season, Francis Turley, Dane Murray, and Jude Bonner, they're all big laddies, eh? They're all they've all got a physicality about them, especially Dane Murray. And I think that shows you what Rodgers is at. Rodgers knows that that's what you need to go to the top of the modern game. You need that physicality, and I did find that very interesting in the 3 that he has gave the debuts to. They all meet a certain physical attribute, which is interesting. It's probably just me looking too much into it, truthfully. I'm going to bring up this comment from P. McLaughlin. It brings into something that he's put in the chat earlier on. We've had Hatate and Maeda at the club for 3 years. This is Cameron Carter-Vickers' 4th season as well. We've done well to keep them this long, especially in this day and age. We think players are going to leave after 2.5 years, right? So let's talk about Maeda. Rodgers says something post game last night. The man's been an absolute phenomenon this season. He's your talisman this season, really is. Player of the year by an absolutely country mile. And he's ran that country mile in 2 seconds, and he's came back and he's ran it again before I've even says all of that. Are we worried in the summer that the club may look to cash in on him, John? And the guy's just a phenomenon, ain't he? If it wasn't for him, we would be in baller. We would be in baller, but he's great.
I'm not worried that the club want to cash in on him. I'm worried that someone else is going to come in and throw some stupid money at it. Now, it's just unbelievable what a turnaround it has been. I mean, if you remember when he came in, Liam kept saying he's a striker, and, you know, all the rest of it. And, you know, he was a winger that couldn't hit a barn door and could hardly get a cross in, all the rest of it. And just the transformation, you're almost expecting him to score in every game now. And he's so cool in the box. And every time I think of a thing that, you know, in my head, like he's no Kyogo in terms of, like, he's not going to create something out of nothing. But he does all the time. Not the same way, but just by graft, by being there all the time. He's always in the right position. He's always harrying people. You know, there are different ways you can be a genius. You know what I mean? And Kyogo, you know, could dig something out of nothing, you know, and that was great to see. But Maeda does it as well, you know, and just in a different way. And he's brilliant at it. And I mean, God, that would be a heartbreaker. I think everyone would be distraught about that. I mean, he brings so much to the team, and he is. You know that you've got at least one player in that team that the opposition is sitting looking at, going, "I don't fancy this at all." You know, that boy's an absolute nightmare. I can imagine playing against him. Imagine being a fullback that has to contain him. You'd just be like, "Oh, geez." I mean, you wouldn't be having any pies and bovril or beer for a couple of weeks before that game. You know what I mean? You'd be down to the gym to get yourself sharpened up to play against Maeda. He's a phenomenon. He's an absolute phenomenon. And as you say, this year it started off Kuhn. And this is a perfect example. So Kuhn starts off on fire. Absolutely on fire. Couldn't have done without him, his early form. And he's dropped off again. He's miles off it at the moment. Now, he played a couple of good balls last night.
That's a winger thing, though, John.
Yeah,
that's a winger thing.
But
no worried about that.
You say it's a winger thing, but the other winger that we're talking about, he's not dropped off.
And that's because he's playing a centre for it.
I know, but he started off, you know. But I mean, he's whether it's centre forward or whether it's a wing, he's the same. You know, he's the same absolute dynamite. So I think he could. There must be serious companies, clubs looking at him. Must be.
James, back me up here. Daizen's no a winger like Kuhn, and he's no a winger like Jota. He is not a winger when I say that's a winger thing. I didn't see Daizen as a winger. I see him as a wide forward or a forward. He's not a winger like Kuhn. He hasn't got the wee tricks and flicks and that. No, that's what I mean. That's why he's not been. Huh?
There's no label you can put on Daizen Maeda. I can't think of another player like him. He's an absolute enigma. Brendan Rodgers said, I think it was after the game yesterday, when he came into the club, he knew that Daizen Maeda was a fantastic player, but he wanted to make him more efficient. I know what you're thinking. Daizen Maeda's efficiency personified. That's his entire game. But what Brendan Rodgers has done with Daizen Maeda is less of the headless chicken stuff that we had seen in Maeda's first maybe 6 months, first year at Celtic, where we were getting frustrated by Daizen Maeda. We can't pretend that we weren't. We're seeing all of this headless chicken stuff. We're seeing less of that. He's pressing with purpose every single time. He's popping up in dangerous areas every single time. And his numbers are showing it as well. Brendan Rodgers has made Daizen Maeda a more efficient player. And I was worried for Maeda when Brendan Rodgers came in. But I'm taking the Brendan Rodgers version of Daizen Maeda over the Ange Postecoglou version of Daizen Maeda every single day of the week.
Yeah.
So you're taking Daizen Maeda with hair over the baldy Daizen Maeda. That's how we've got to frame it. Bald Maeda, hair Maeda. I was right there, which could have went very, very wrong, but I'm not going to say it.
But you know, look, there's a strong possibility we could be facing a massive bid for him, because his stats have got to be unbelievable. The amount of goals he scored, the amount of ground he covers, the pressing that he does. If you were, you know, so basically all the top teams do this, you know, stats-driven, data-driven recruitment. So Daizen Maeda has got to be coming out at the top of that all the way down, and then you look a bit closer and see what league he's playing in, that sort of thing. Does that still suit you? But I mean, it's just he's an absolute phenomenon, and I tell you this though, I think if we sold him, Brendan might walk. So I think Brendan could go early. I think he'd take that much of a huff because I think he has like a real manager's proper love affair going on with Daizen. That's a player you only get once in a blue moon. Someone with that attitude. He's just there's no messing with him. He's got that sort of Japanese formality about him. He could. Stereotypical, but we say some people could be William Wallace over here. You just think, I mean, he could be a samurai warrior in any film that I've ever seen. The guy looks as if he's going to do you damage. Do you know what I mean? He's so inscrutable and formal, and I'm just throwing out a whole load of stereotypes that are going to get me in trouble here. But
yes, definitely.
he does. But he does. He's just. I love the way he carries himself. I love the way he doesn't go bananas when he celebrates. I love the way that everything is on a level. And I love the way that's got to be scary. When you see this guy, he's not emotional. He's not getting in a huff. He's not getting annoyed. And when he does get frustrated, he does. I was just going to say, when he does get frustrated, he just boots you. But it's difficult to make him frustrated. And what makes him frustrated is his not being able to dominate the game. That's what, and it's against much better sides, but he's not able, and the team is not doing well, and he's not able to get himself inserted into the game as much as he wants. He can get frustrated at that, but that just shows you his mentality. He can't tolerate anything below like a 99% performance, and that's what drives him. That's what drives his mentality. That's what drives his success. It's just wonderful to see.
It is wonderful to see. I was trying to think there. Tamagotchi. I don't know if that's how you say it. Tamagotchi is a Japanese wind spirit. So I think he's a Tamagotchi, or either that's a Pokemon. I'm
Tamagotchi's the wee toys that you had to keep alive. That's what
Tamagotchi is.
There is a Japanese wind spirit, and I'll Google it once I'll get on. Stephen Redmond, I'm going to bring in the comment. Kev, did you just say you don't believe in a number 6 or 8, then say we need to bring in a number 6? I did say that. I do not believe in them, but we have a manager who does. So I'm getting away with that one.
I just want to say there's a couple of boys have commented on the pictures. So for anyone that tunes in regularly, you'll know I just my dad's blazer was usually up behind me, and I just don't want to keep it out anymore because it's getting damaged. But this is a new green screen thing, so you check this out, right? So you can't wear any green, so I quickly had to change my top. But I'm still wearing it. This is what happens when you're wearing a green top in front of a green screen. You see the picture behind me. So it's I'll get it right for the next week or so, but yeah, we're going to have to. Celtic don't do any more black tops, I don't think. So I'm going to be running out of gear fairly quickly.
Simo had the Japanese wind god as a fusion. I was thinking of something completely different there. I'm going to need to. I've made an arse of that. Not the first time I've made an arse of something. There you go, but
yeah, come on. We've only got 2 minutes, and I want to talk about them across the road.
Okay. We've only got 2 minutes. We need to talk about the guys across the road, the 4 bears who walked into a pub and ended up getting a job.
Yeah, I'm going to put my feet up here and just let you go. I'm just going to let you go with this.
They went fishing. They went fishing in the sink well of Staunch, the Lavey of Loyal, the Bog of Bigotry, and they ended up with the Aloha Ancelotti and the boys from Hundred. And I assume they recruited so many of them in the hope of recreating one functioning brain. So we'll see how the Brogshine and Bros get on. But, I mean, what an embarrassment that is. What a humiliation. It's hard to imagine any other senior club in the world being so poorly prepared for the termination of a manager whose sacking has been coming for months and who they don't have the money to sack. So you have to assume that a couple of those directors get the hump so much that they're willing to sacrifice millions of their own money, put their hands in their pockets and get rid of them and replace them with this carnival of clowns, the fairground of fools, the waltzer of whoppers, the lethal weapons. And at that point, I've run out of things to say. But I wanted to get all that in.
I mean, you have a look at it. Whatever you say about Clermont, right? The guy had won titles in Belgium. He was a proven coach. He'll probably will get the Belgian national team job. Doesn't matter what you say. And they've replaced him with a guy that's only achieved in his only achievement in his management career is having the best car in the club car park. That's it. That's all he's ever achieved in his management career. If somebody would have asked you, go and pick a Rangers management team, you would have picked them. you would have gone, aye, go and pick all of them. It's funny. It is really, really funny. And I've heard folk trying to justify it by saying it's the same as when we appointed Neil Lennon, and I'm going, no, it's not. It's not really the same. It's not really the same as when we appointed Neil Lennon. We all had our doubts about Neil Lennon, and he proved us all wrong. But it's not even as bad as us appointing somebody like Barry Robson or Paul Hartley or some. It's maybe on that level because they haven't got any experience of. It's madness, James, for me. It's absolutely pure madness. And to hear them jumping through hoops to try and justify it, that it's going to be a good thing until Ancelotti comes in the summer with Klopp as assistant.
He does have experience, okay. If that's the problem, he does have experience. So he's not a former player that you're saying, oh, he's going to come in and do a job. He used to be a great player. Could he be a great manager? No, he's done the management thing. He's absolutely dreadful at it. He's been a massive failure everywhere he's gone. So he was caretaker at Blackpool. I assume that means he was a janitor. He was at Celtic Hearts, shocking. And he's at Alloa, he was at Clyde. Every one of them worse than the other. And this is the guy. So he's not just a former player coming in off the back of nothing, hoping he's got great potential as a manager. We know what he does as a manager. He's dreadful.
He is dreadful. And I was going to say something there, John, and you've actually made me lose my train of thought. What was I going to say, James? I can't remember. James, go and talk so I can actually remember what I was going to say.
Barry Ferguson, you mentioned he was Clyde manager. I've seen Borna Groves beat Clyde a couple of times the last sort of few years or so. So I don't know what that's. I don't think he was a manager at the time, though. But he said himself he didn't plan to get back into management. He wanted to take a step back. He was fine in his club ambassador role at Ibrox. That was enough for him. But I don't think things can get any worse for Rangers. I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but it's been a dismal season already. Surely it doesn't get worse. But when you think about the wins over Rangers, the remaining few that we'll have this season are going to be so much sweeter, just simply based on who is in charge there now. Because we can go and we can laugh at Clement and all that, but Clement's just come from somewhere else. He's not a Rangers man. So these wins are going to be even sweeter because you're going to see all their faces.
Right, I've got what I was going to say. I saw a clip of Craig Moore on Go Radio the other night, and Craig Moore was going on about he's a born winner. He'll raise the standards. He'll raise the standards. He's a born winner. Roy Keane was a born winner. Terrible football manager. What does being a born winner actually mean, James? It means nothing. It's something that they throw out there. He has nothing on his CV, which means that he can be the Rangers manager. Nothing on his CV apart from he used to play for them.
Yeah,
there's nothing there.
Translate. Andrea Pirlo is one of the most intelligent footballers ever, and he's an absolutely dreadful manager. The footballing ability and football management ability, it doesn't always coincide. Deschamps was he wasn't the main man when he was a footballer, and he became the World Cup winner with France. It doesn't coincide at all.
I heard somebody actually mentioning as well, Zinedine Zidane didn't have any management experience, but Barry Ferguson has got management experience and he's failed everywhere he's went, John. They're jumping through hoops trying to sell this. Really are.
No, well, they can't sell it any more than they can sell this proposed takeover, which they all seem to think is a done deal. And I think, I was listening to James Daly the other day, and he explained all the reasons why potentially this takeover could happen, and potentially why people are looking around clubs like this and all the rest of it. And I was like, yeah, potentially and hypothetically, these are all reasons, but they haven't done their due diligence yet. And when they do that due diligence, this is never going to fly, in my view. There is not a chance. These investment companies are looking for a return on their money in short order, and you're not going to get that at Rangers. You need to increase revenues massively for that club to be worth more than it's going to be when you put it in. That's not going to happen anytime soon. It's not going to happen without structural change. It's not going to happen without rebuilding a stadium. It could be 750 million quid. It's not just, once you start getting into the weeds on this, you would need to be out your head to think that they're going to come in and buy 51%. So I think there's a possibility that they'll come in and throw a few quid at it. I still don't think they will, but let's say they'll come in and throw a few quid at it. But that's like there's a difference between putting an each way bet on a horse in the National and buying the horse. So that's your interest, is you've got some money on it. But it's a very, very different thing. So yeah, I still struggle to believe that they'll put anything in, because I just don't see what the upside is for them with Rangers, not at all.
The thing is, John, with me, there's some certain folk keep on writing it's not going to happen, and they get it wrong that often that I probably believe that they will get took over and it will be great for them.
There's a lot more folk writing it is going to happen. If you look at the papers today or yesterday or the day before, it's a done deal. It's apparently a done deal. It's happening. But that's not what the statement said. The statement said they had not done their due diligence yet. So this narrative has been led mainly by Dave King's cohort in the papers, because he wants to sell his shares. But there's no doubt there's some truth in it. But what that truth is, I doubt it's very much that it's got anything to do with what they're portraying it as at the moment.
Right, we'll deal with that if and when it actually happens.
Overtime, so Big John can give the people what they want.
Aye, definitely. We're into extra time. I think the boards went up. We're into extra time. We'll deal with the night. Hopefully, Derek McInnes is annoyed that wee Barry's got his job and actually puts him in his place. The one thing I love about this new Rangers management team is that they're instantly hateable. Every single one of them is instantly hateable. It's like a reform meeting in a Tesla. It's easy to dislike. Right, everybody, thank you very much. 1,700 at one point there's 1,784 on at this precise moment in time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your comments. John and James, thank you very much for making this very, very easy. And everybody, dinna be bams to each other. See you later.